Today I'm here to make sure your spirits are risen with an AMD $1,500 Ryzen PC build. I did just tell that joke, didn't I? Oh dear. Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and today I'm going to be taking you over a $1,500 AMD Ryzen PC build. Now pricing it is going to be pretty volatile, and it's worth noting that AMD's top end Ryzen 7 chips are the more kind of enthusiast processors. But I'm going to go over a build that's great for 4K gaming, 1440p gaming, and of course video editing and streaming. So first let's kick it off with the benchmark and performance numbers you can be expecting out of this system. When playing at 1080 and 1440p, you're going to be looking at well over 120, 130 frames per second, and even the latest AAA titles, whether that be Forza Horizon 3, GTA 5, Overwatch, all of those games are going to give great frame rates. Even popping up to 4K, you're going to see a impressive 60 frames per second constantly. So let's get into it and go over the parts that I chose and why. In terms of the CPU, I went for AMD's lowest end Ryzen 7 1700 chip. Now this is an absolute beast. It's an 8-core chip with a 3.7 GHz turbo and a 3 GHz base. It's got a 65 watt TDP, which is insane. Gone are the days of the AMD being your new room heater jokes. It's a really incredible chip. Now whilst the i7 7700K, which this directly competes with, is known to have slightly better single-threaded performance, especially in slightly older games at 1080p, not many people are using the 7700K for the sole purpose of gaming. When you're streaming, video editing, rendering, using Photoshop, the Adobe application, Sony Vegas, this is where that CPU really comes into its own, and it comes in at around $10 cheaper than the i7 7700K. The motherboard for this one was another difficult choice. I went for MSI's X370 Gaming Pro Carbon. I've reviewed the Z270 board, and you can check that out in the card section now, and this strikes a good balance between keeping that X370 chipset for better overclocking, a better feature set, but also not spending so much money that your motherboard ends up costing you more than your CPU. It also looks very nice. It's got good RGB control, whether you want to change different bits to suit your build. Overall, a really nice motherboard. But what about the CPU cooler? Now there's a whole range of choices for this. You could go for a high-end air cooler, such as one from Noctua, which have been shipping out with many of the Ryzen chips as review samples, or you could go for something like Corsair's Hydro Series H80i V2 Extreme. Now this is a 120mm radiator, so it isn't quite as big as a 240mm rad, but you can go for either, absolutely no problem. It's got two fans in a push-pull configuration, so it's going to give nice temperatures and good overclocking performance. It also looks very nice. It's nice and quiet as well. It's going to be very efficient, going to keep your CPU nice and cool. Overall, a great bet, and of course it has that AM4 Ryzen mounting compatibility. In terms of RAM, this was another difficult choice. The RAM prices lately have been incredibly volatile and incredibly turbulent. They're just going up and down, and you just can't keep track. That's mainly due to the influx of new CPUs that require DDR4, these Ryzen 7 chips for example, and then AMD's upcoming more budget-oriented Ryzen chips increase the demand for DDR4 quite drastically. Corsair's Vengeance LPX is nice. It comes in a stealthy black design, or you can get it in other colours as well, and the DDR4 speed is what we need for this CPU. Now there have been reports of AMD's Ryzen chips not coping quite so well with higher clock memories, but it's seen very mixed reactions. Some people with samples have said, yeah, it's having trouble, and some have gone, no, I've got 3000 megahertz stuff running absolutely no problem. So just go for around a 2666 megahertz kit, and then if it needs to run slower at 2133 megahertz for example, that's going to be absolutely no problem. However, those bugs should get ironed out in future kind of BIOS updates, driver updates, and that kind of thing. Now storage was another tricky choice. You obviously want an SSD and a hard drive, your SSD for your Windows boot and your hard drive for your mass storage. Taking a look at NVMe SSDs, they're very expensive at the moment, much like DDR4 RAM, and it was a better option to go for something like Samsung's 850 EVO or 850 Pro 500GB 2.5-inch SATA SSD. You're going to need around about 20 to 25 gigabytes for your Windows 10 install, but aside from that, you're seeing at least 450 gig of extra space for your most frequently used games, movies and applications. So you've also got an important document. You can store it on both the SSD and the hard drive for increased redundancy and reliability. Also in your video editing, an SSD is crucial because you don't want to be experiencing storage bottlenecks from hard drives. You're editing 4K footage or even high bitrate 1080p footage in large quantities, you read it off a hard drive, it isn't fun. Trust me, this is just a really nice product from Samsung, and I've featured it in quite a few of my builds and my build guides in the past. In terms of mass storage though, you want at least 2TB for a build like this. I could fill a terabyte in an afternoon with my Steam library, and I'm sure many of you could as well. This Seagate 2TB Barracuda drive, it is around about the same price as the Western Digital offering, but I've just had better experiences with in terms of reliability. It comes in at 7200 RPM, which is fast as mainstream hard drives get, and does the job perfectly. Now, to go along with the MSI motherboard that I chose, I thought, you know what, we'll show MSI some love with their gaming GeForce GTX 1070. It's got an 8GB frame buffer, which is great for cranking up the textures, and of course supports SLI if you wanted to add another one in later on down the line. Be aware though, if you were opting for two 1070s out of the box, I would recommend going for the 1080 in a single card configuration, but this 1070 is more than powerful enough for most people. It looks really sick in its black and red design, and also goes along with the case that I've chosen. Talking of the case, the Bitfenix Aurora it's just an incredible case. I've actually got a review of this going up in the channel, and you can view that in the cards section now. It's got tempered glass side panels on both sides. You can also get LEDs and RGB fans for this as well to make it look even better. It's got RGB LEDs inbuilt around the SSD area as well to show off the 2.5-inch drive we've gone for. It's got a solid I/O, a nice design, quite minimalistic inside as well, and comes in either white or black, but the black fits in very well with the colour scheme chosen in this build. It's also got decent water cooling support and decent airflow as well, although I would recommend picking up a couple of extra fans. Now, in terms of power supply, many people just absolutely lose it at this point. They're like, I need 1250 watts, it's an AMD CPU, it must require a lot of energy. Well, those days are gone, my friends. The Corsair RMX series 750 watt power supply is just a great offering all around. It's very efficient, so it's going to save you money at the wall. It isn't going to destroy any of your other components, much like a cheap non-brand power supply would, and you don't need any more than this. I've had two 1070s running off a 750 watt power supply before. It's got an 80+ rating as well, which is nice and high, the 80+ gold rating for increased efficiency and reliability, and overall is a fantastic choice. But if you did enjoy this video, smash that like button. I'll leave links to everything for Amazon US, UK and international regions. You click those international links and it will take you to the Amazon page for whatever country you're in. It's just so convenient. Make sure to follow my Twitter at GeekaWhat, but as always, we'll see you in the next GeekaWhat video.